Hello, Mr. Veitch.
Andrew, how are you?
I'm good, and yourself, sir?
Doing well, thanks.
Excellent. So the reason why you're here today, as I'm sure you know, is we're going to ask you a couple questions, kind of do an online video debate. I'm going to ask you 9 questions. One's going to be a personal question. The other 8 will be community or questions both you and Steve will answer. For the most part, the first 3 were ones that I created. They're just kind of general questions. As far as your qualifications and such as being a president. Then the next came from the NMCO community. The only additional one I kind of helped synthesize some of the questions.
Sure.
Because we actually got a huge response. I got
Wow.
42 emails on different questions. And a lot of them were asking a lot of the same things. So we'll go ahead and start with the first one. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself, starting with your name, your profession, and your experiences both as a chess player and as a volunteer, or maybe even as a chess administrator in some respects.
Okay. My name is Scout Veitch. Full name is James Scout Veitch, but I go by Scout. I'm a twice honorably discharged veteran, both Navy and Air Force. I spent 27 years teaching in Albuquerque Public Schools at El Dorado High School, mathematics mostly. In 1990, I was convinced to sponsor the El Dorado Chess Club by several players, and I started that in the fall of 1991, and it continued for 16 years until I retired in 2006. During that time, we went to the state team tournament 10 times in a row, missed a year and went back for 2 or 3 more, if I recall correctly. Took second, third, a few others. Had several good players came through El Dorado that have wound up actually being state champions. Scott Kearns graduated in 96, became state champion in 2002. And Chad Schneider, I believe he was a 99 graduate, and he recently was state champion with 3 other players, Doug Thigpen being one of them. I ran the Central Region as a director, also the state directorship for the NMAA for several years. Set these tournaments up and ran them. I'm right now a local director, TD, for USCF, which has now changed its name. That's when I got started. Directed over 40 sections. Let's see, what else? My playing strength, I don't think is what it should be, but we tend to continue to grow. Hopefully I'll grow a little more before I grow too old. But I enjoy chess and always had a lot of fun with it. And I actually enjoy helping out wherever and whenever.
Hello, Steve.
Hello.
It's basic.
Thanks for joining me today and taking part in this kind of interview/debate for your upcoming election for NMCO president.
Thank you for inviting me.
So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you a series of 9 questions. The first 8 are just are questions both you and your opponent, Scout Veitch, will answer together. The last one will be a personal question. The first 3 questions are basically just general questions that I developed, and the next 5, one of them comes from me, but the rest come from other individuals in the NMCO or New Mexico chess community. And we actually got a pretty big response when I put out a post for people asking questions about what they wanted to know from you or Scout as far as what you would do as upcoming president. It was pretty encouraging. All right, so on to the first question. Number one, tell us about yourself, starting with your name, profession, and your experiences with chess, both as a player, volunteer, or even perhaps as an administrator.
Okay, my name is Steve Perea, and part of my profession is owning a computer store, but I've gone into semi-retirement to devote more to chess. I work 22 hours in 4 different schools. I also compete in chess, and I coach, and I also direct tournaments. So I feel I'm well-rounded in all the fields needed to be president.
So question number 2, why do you believe you would make a good NMCO president?
Now, I was elected president once before in 2009, served a full term, and then decided to allow someone else to step in. I probably shouldn't have done that, but I did. I served the whole year. Before that, I was a tournament organizer for NMCO. As tournament organizer, I was a major player in getting a Blitz tournament at the Balloon Museum and did many other different things. But there was always a communication problem within NMCO. And I felt that after that year as president, I wasn't able to solve that or get around it. And I felt that maybe someone else could do a better job. I don't think it's happened, but that's why I'm...
Okay, question number 2. Why do you believe you would make a good NMCO president?
Well, there's several accomplishments that I have achieved through chess. I am the NMA director, and I received special recognition from the NMA for my supports in scholastic chess. I just recently received a Special Service Award from the United States Chess Federation. I've also obtained level 3 with the UFCF coach certification, and I've achieved the local director level for chess. I've received numerous awards from different people, other small organizations, but the big one is, I feel, is the UFCF one.
Okay, question number 3. In your opinion, what separates you from your opponent, Steve Perea?
I have no chess business to run. I'm not teaching chess for money. I am not running tournaments for money. And I have no chess teams that I am tending to favor over any other chess teams. I have been recently helping out in some elementary school settings, but these aren't providing the foundation for a conflict of interest with me and NMCO. And that's the difference. Taking nothing away from Steve, I just feel that that's a more appropriate situation.
Question number
There
3.
is no
In
question.
your opinion, what separates you from your opponent, Scout Veitch?
The excessive experience that I feel I have. I started playing in the league when I was only 13. So I've gone through the ranks, achieved certain norms with UFCF, gone on the coaching. I've also implemented chess as a class in the schools. So I've also promoted chess as a class, run several camps, worked with kids, worked with adults. I've done the whole spectrum. I've worked with the North and the South of New Mexico to try and bring everybody together.
Okay, so moving on to question number 4. These are now coming from other people. Identify what you believe are the strengths and successes of NMCO over the last year, and identify what you think some of their shortcomings and failures have been.
I think with NMCO over the last year, they've tried to expand chess in the state. That is a wonderful effort. The Socorro tournament, springtime in Socorro, was a very good effort. The Heart of the Desert tournament, which some call the Pistachio Open, but that was down in Las Cruces, was a wonderful effort there as well. Little snags come up all the time, but those are two of the positives that I have seen. And now you want also the negatives?
Yes.
All right. Timeliness of reporting of events. Consistency with initial decisions doesn't seem to be there. There are changes made at the last minute, and this throws many people into a tizzy. They don't care for that. And some of these are the directors also. You can wing it and make it work, but that doesn't replace good, proper planning and consistency of decision making. And that is where I see New Mexico falling down, for the most part.
And so what are some of the things you would do to kind of prevent this from happening in the future?
That's a tough one. And the reason it is because as president, I'm not dictator. That's why I left the president's position after 1 year anyway. I was not receiving the cooperation. But I feel that now, maybe with also a new vice president, the president and vice president tend to set the tone. And I really think, though, Master Robert Haynes, and I have had some differences in the past. I think we both have a positive focus towards chess. We could set these aside, create things in a timely fashion, simplified, and present these to the New Mexico chess community. I think if they see timeliness and reasonable communication, they'll start to come back, and we'll see the attendance rise. And that will
Okay,
be
question number 4. Identify what you believe to be NMCO's strengths and successes over the last year. Also identify what you believe to be their shortcomings and failures.
Okay, some of the strength and successes is promoting chess all over the state. We've had a huge growth in Las Cruces, and now starting to have a following in Socorro. We're preparing to launch some tournaments in Farmington, which will help expand. Some of the shortcomings I've seen is a decline in membership. And I feel sometimes that's part to lack of proper planning. We need to plan these events 8 months to a year in advance. So if I think we had better planning, I think we'd have better attendance at some of the tournaments.
Okay, so that's how you would, is there anything else you would do to prevent any future failings?
To prevent future failings is I would actually make everybody promote early. We'd also coordinate with the North and the South with their tournaments. We don't want tournaments on top of each other that'll conflict. Prime example is Jim Johnson had to cancel his October Rook events because there were too many tournaments. So now the North is without a tournament.
Okay, so question number 5. The current New Mexico, the current NMCO board members rarely participate in tournaments, yet they make the decisions for all those who do decide to compete. This doesn't quite seem right. What will you do as NMCO president to fill your board with individuals who do compete in tournaments, or to encourage those who don't?
Okay, filling the board. 4 members are voted on. The membership fills those positions. The other ones are appointed, member-at-large type of things. All right. Now, honestly, I think just reasonable encouragement. To be an elected board member, it's my understanding now that you have to play in a certain number of tournaments, which has caused the other board members to actually step up and play occasionally, all right? Tournament organizer, tournament director. USCF would prefer that a director not play.
Sure.
And this is why Larry Kemp is going to step aside as director for this next tournament and allow Art Byers to come back in, direct the tournament, so he can actually play.
But I
The
think
reason to have board members that play in tournaments is to provide some empathy with the players in the first place.
yeah. But let me stop you there for a second, Scott.
Sure.
And so I would kind of argue, though that is true, I don't remember the last time seeing, Larry, Art, Dean, or any of those at one of my tournaments or at one of Jim Johnston's tournaments,
Right.
which they're not directing as well. So I would
You mean outside the NMCO? venue.
exactly, because
Okay.
we're all
All right.
chess community here, and
Right.
we're all trying to work towards the betterment of chess. So so not only competing in NMCO tournaments, but just overall having a presence as a competitor within.
The rest of the state's chess
Exactly.
community.
Exactly.
How to encourage that? Goodness.
Well,
That's a little challenging, but I'm sorry, you don't have to do much encouragement to get people to participate in Jim Johnston's tournaments. He does a wonderful job. He has a great venue. He's timely with everything. It's all up front. Are there problems? Sure, once in a while you've got one or two. You have them everywhere. All right? But he takes care of them in a fair and equitable way. And I don't think any encouragement needs to be provided except to maybe remind the members that, look, folks, there's a great tournament happening in Santa Fe. A wonderful one will be going on in Socorro or down in Las Cruces, up in Taos, wherever. And try and go.
But and that's good. But at the same time, though, this isn't my question, but I would think that what the person is trying to ask is, you kind of like you intimated a second ago, there's a requirement for you to play in a certain amount in
Right.
the Constitution.
Right.
So you could actually, so you even just mentioned a solution. Would you be willing to amend the Constitution that says you have to be an active member in the chess community and to define such parameters as there?
I think that suggestion has merit, but to define active and what that means is a challenge, Andrew. And
Sure.
I think that might be a bit of micromanaging. When a board member is not meeting the expectations of the membership, that's one of the reasons I'm running. It's been suggested to me, you need to run. Things might improve. That's how we do that. Do they need to be involved in the chess community? Of course. They're board members in terms of being in chess. They need to have that knowledge. How they get it, to what extent they get it, that's a matter of, to a certain degree, up to
Question number 5.
Fair.
The current NMCO board members rarely participate in tournaments, yet they make decisions for all those who do compete. This doesn't quite seem right. What will you do as NMCO president to fill your board with individuals who do compete in tournaments, and how will you encourage those who don't?
Well, I believe in leading by example. I have military experience both as an enlisted man and as an officer. So I know what's expected from your leaders and what a leader is expected to do. So by leading by example as vice president, I've become a very active player and playing in a lot of tournaments. It's very important to know what it's like to be in a tournament where decisions are made. Sometimes they're not right, sometimes they are right. But we need to be active in
Question
what
number
we
6.
decide.
Scholastic chess is the future of New Mexico chess. Hundreds of youth who play chess in New Mexico. There are hundreds of youth that play chess in New Mexico, and many will not compete in serious tournaments. Although New Mexico does have a handful who do attend, upon arrival at national youth events, the majority of states create teams, organizations, and offer other players with support by local chess experts at these events. Also, incentives to youth to participate in chess versus other extracurricular activities. In order to continue a future of strong chess in New Mexico, how will you, as NMCO president, promote, organize national youth chess participation from New Mexico?
Okay, before we can really get to the national level, we have to promote scholastic chess within New Mexico. Even though NMCO doesn't have a direct involvement with scholastic chess has a huge impact on NMCO. We really need to build the membership within scholastic chess. I am also the NMA director, and I try to promote as much as I can in scholastic chess. I have created 2 events, the middle school and the elementary state championships. I've actually given away UFCF memberships to help get the kids involved in UFCF and NMCO events. These are events that I've had to finance out of my own pocket. It's not even close to a money-making type situation. We give away extra medals for the top kids, and I also give away medals for kids at the bottom for just honorable mention. It's exciting to see these little kids get medals, and they become so enthusiastic about chess, they stay with it for years.
Okay, question number 6. Scholastic chess is the future of New Mexico. Of the hundreds of youth who play in New Mexico, many will not participate in serious tournaments, although New Mexico does have a handful who do attend. Upon arrival at national youth chess events, the majority of states create teams, organizations, and offer other players with support by local chess experts at these events. Also, other incentives to youth to participate in chess versus other extracurricular activities in order to continue a future of strong chess in New Mexico. How will you, as NMCO president, promote and organize national youth chess participation from New Mexico?
Wow. I had a former board member within the last 2 to 3 weeks suggest to me that I need to focus on the business of NMCO and quit creating an umbrella for scholastic chess situations. All right? Again, we have micromanaging. We have in place in this state the NMSCO, which is not NMCO. It's the New Mexico Scholastic Chess Organization. If that's not being run well, then those people need to step aside and let it be run well. I'm not going to run that, and I'm not going to dictate to them. As a matter of fact, I was a board participant when that was done in the past, and with almost disastrous results. So, am I ducking the question? Perhaps a little, but we have other scholastic entities within this state, all right? Steve Perea runs camps and tournaments. He teaches classes, all right? He himself does. Victor Lopez also does. He runs Learner's Chess Academy. Orange Stevens has a hand in this also. Ron Kensick, wonderful man, has since the mid-90s, early to mid-90s, run the Albuquerque Schools Chess League. And he's providing some tremendous chess opportunities for the youth in the city of Albuquerque and the surrounding area. Rio Rancho, Las Lunas, it come from as far away as Belen and Estancia before. All right, it's there. Do I have a hand in that? Maybe support, but I don't think economic support is the way to go. Ron doesn't think so. He's never used economic support from NMCO, but consistently he has 300 students a year going through his program for elementary, middle school, and high school. All right? This is the kind of things that will bring to the top the cream of the crop. If we can keep from hampering that rise in scholastic chess. Andy Nowak was probably the finest example. He set up NMSCO originally, ran the Northern Schools Chess League. Going to fill his shoes? You're going to need several pairs of feet to do it. So, I'll support as much as I can.
Okay, moving on to the next section of questions. So NMCO, is a non-for-profit organization. They're a 501c3 tax-exempt organization. And basically what this means is that they reach that tax-exempt status because they're considered to be owned by the public, and specifically a public interest group. And in this case, it would be the chess community of New Mexico. And I've kind of gotten the feeling over all these emails that I've received that over the past few years, it seems to have been lost on the current board. So question number 7. This is kind of a little bit about accountability. And so several members down south have asked the NMCO board to teleconference them in on meetings for the past year, but yet this hasn't been done. What will you do as NMCO president to make sure that these meetings are, the members from outside of Albuquerque are able to attend these meetings by teleconferencing it?
Well, currently there are some technical difficulties to make it happen, but it can happen. I've already engaged in teleconferencing with the South for scholastic chess as the NMA director to help get them off the ground. So with that experience with scholastic chess, I'll bring that to NMCO and try and promote having a teleconference or something over the internet to communicate so we're all there. And even from the North, we want to include the North too. We want to include everybody.
Okay, so the next couple of questions are going to be about accountability. I was talking with a few at my last term, and I was talking with a few of the members, from down south and such forth, and they kind of feel like the mission of NMCO has been lost. And one thing that they don't realize, they feel like NMCO has kind of missed the point is that it's a non-for-profit organization. It's tax exempt. It's a 501c3. So it basically means, you're publicly owned by a particular interest group. And in this case, the interest group is the chess community of New Mexico. And so, they feel like over the last few years, this has been lost on them. And so the question is several board members down south have asked that NMCO teleconference them in on the board meetings for the past year, but this is yet to be done. What will you do as NMCO president to make these players able to attend, to telecommute to these meetings if they can't drive in from outside of Albuquerque?
That's been tried. It has. I've been to meetings, not as a board member, but I've been to meetings where a Skype situation has been attempted. Didn't work well. Now, should we give up? No. I think this can be done fairly successfully, but we have to set it up in advance. We can't wait until the night of the meeting to turn our computer on and realize that we now have a virus that won't even allow us to pull up Word Perfect. You see what I'm saying? We need some advanced, and this is one of the main things with NMCO right now. We wait till the last minute to do these things, and we can't. We have to have this set up well in advance, and this is going to get even more challenging. Will Barella and Matt Grinberg are both from the southern part of the state. Will has taken a tremendously active role in chess in this state, especially in Las Cruces, El Paso area. And he's really wanting to get involved. Well, I understand he just can't drive up here all the time, and neither can Matt Grinberg, who's our Desert Night editor. Now, who's running for secretary? Annabelle Romero? From where? Santa Fe. So we have someone to the north of us and a couple to the south, and they need to get to these meetings. We need to set up the technology. And I
All
think
right, question
we can do
number
it.
8.
We'll see.
So this one is from me. I came to the board last year to discuss several items, and all these, I suggested quite a few improvements, and though everyone agreed with me in the proposals I made, ultimately none of them were implemented. One thing in particular that I mentioned was the weekend in which NMCO Open was held. I even brought a petition signed by 25 individuals who wanted the date of the tournament to be moved. But yet, a year later, it's still on the same weekend. What will you do as NMCO president to ensure that the board listens to its stakeholders and to do what is right by their public and not just what is the easiest?
Well, NMCO did listen, but the problem was it wasn't implemented. They were great ideas. And one thing I brought up is that you brought all these ideas forward, and you are a tournament player, a strong one. And some of these points were missed because at the time a lot of the members weren't active players. They were kind of losing touch with what it takes to be in a tournament. New Mexico Open was chosen on a bad date. Personal experience was Heart of the Desert Open. It was during Thanksgiving weekend. So I had to miss my time with my family in order to make sure everything was in place. I actually went a week ahead of the tournament to make sure everything was in place, and while I was there I gave out seminars to coaches and students, but it was a holiday that I couldn't spend with my family. So we need to listen to our players about what dates are important, and this year the Heart of the Desert Open will be moved to
Okay,
non
question number 8. So this one is from me. Last year, before the New Mexico Open, I came to the board. I sat down with them, and we discussed a few of their tournaments, how they're running things, some of the issues with running tournaments late. Dean Brown's message on the forum. And matter of fact, I talked to a couple of the Colorado folks when I went to the U.S. Open, and how much they used to enjoy coming down to our tournaments. But they have since been so disgusted, they kind of refuse to. And so one of the things I brought up, I don't know, get 10 different suggestions, and none of them were implemented. But one thing in particular is I actually had a petition signed by 25 people who wanted to move the weekend of the New Mexico Open because everyone wants to compete in it, but they always put it between the busiest time of the year. They put it between the Balloon Fiesta and between the State Fair.
Right.
And so...
And do you want to know who was partly responsible for that? You're talking to him, and I apologize.
Let me finish. And so...
Go ahead.
Going back to, the public owns it, and, its stakeholders, the chess players of New Mexico own NMCO. How will you make sure that when they come with you to suggestions, they'll actually be implemented? Because kind of the feeling, and my personal feeling, is that what's kind of done now at NMCO is what's easiest and not necessarily what's right.
Okay. There's no guarantee that any requests will ultimately be honored. All right. Yes, it is between two very busy times, but consider where it came from. The New Mexico Open had traditionally, in years gone by, been in the last week or two of October, the first week in November. It's like a 20-day window in there. Well, what happens at the end of October? Oh, Halloween. 1st of November, oh, let's see, voting. These are things that have hampered the New Mexico Open in the past, okay? Now, that doesn't mean you can't put it in that time frame. It just means that that's a really big challenge. There are others. The Youth Symphony gets going in early November. That's a big draw for a lot of kids, okay? Math and science competitions pull away from this. So the desire was to move it to after the state fair, as close to the end of September as possible, because it's guaranteed that the balloon fiesta will not be in September. It never starts until the first Saturday in October. That has been decided years ago, and it's going to stay that way as far as I can see, maybe for as long as we have one. Reason being, they did a study on weather. It's the best weather for flying balloons. Okay? The state fair, when that's done and school is in session.
So we're getting a little off topic here. So what
Sure.
it was is that, because I mean, you could easily do it in November, the first week, which I'm doing. I'm throwing a tournament.
That's right.
There's plenty of opportunities to throw it other weekends. But what will you do to make sure that you are an agent of the public and making sure that what is suggested? Because when I went to the board, they all thought it was a great idea, and they all said, yeah, we're going to change it, we're going to do this. But then nothing ultimately ended up
Okay.
changing.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. You've got to be upfront and straight with people and say, you know what? That we can't do it, all right? Or we won't do it, but not tell you on one hand, yeah, that's a great idea, thanks for sharing, and then nothing changes. If it's the will, we'll change it. But here's the other thing that you want to consider. Albuquerque Open, always in June. Memorial Senior, almost always in January. To put in November the other large tournament really presses on the next large one, which is the Memorial Senior. That's the other reason it was moved back. So.
But again, it's a pretty bad date, but you can still, but again, that's not quite the focus of the question. But we'll move on to the next one.
The answer I give to you is we can change everything. But on those times when we have changed everything, we frequently lost attendance.
Okay, and on to question number
Stay
9. It's a
consistent.
personal question for you. Some seem to believe that there's a conflict of interest in you teaching chess, being a coach for a team in the Scholastic League, and also being the director of the Scholastic League and the tournament director of a team in the league. How would you respond to that?
Well, I'm not the only person in charge. Each event, I invite other coaches to help participate, direct, and help with pairings, make sure everything is legitimate. If there's an issue with one of my teams, I cannot preside. I ask another coach to make the decision and accept their decision. People I've asked to participate is Ron Kenzik, Oren Stevens, Dwight, last name's Dwight, and Scout Veitch himself. So I don't participate in any rulings on any of my teams. I have to have other people do it for me. And I involve the other coaches in the pairings. We go over everything together.
Okay, and kind of a follow-up to that question. is, you know, where they do believe that they found an instance where there was a conflict of interest. There was this classic tournament, I guess, this past spring. I think it was the middle school tournament where you were the tournament director, and one of your students was playing a game and they resigned and they shook their opponent's hand. But then you came in and interjected and adjudicated the game a draw. Would you like to tell your side of the story?
I can't exactly recall because I don't make any judgments for my team. I have somebody else do it. They tell me the results, and then I'll go back and say, this is what could have happened. I didn't change any scores. I can't change any scores because I'm watched by the other coaches. And I use them to help me to prevent this type of situation.
So, so you're saying it didn't happen?
No, it didn't happen. I have other, like I said, I have Ron Kenzik and other coaches there to make decisions for my team. I do it in middle school, elementary, and high school. I've called Ron Kenzik over saying, hey, there's a dispute here, and I step back and let him decide, or one of the other assistant TDs. I just don't get involved in any team that I'm involved with. I can't make any decisions for them.
Sounds good. All right, sir. Well, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you coming in to speak with us today. Okay, and the
Thank
last
you for
question is
inviting
a
me.
personal question for you, Scott.
Okay.
So when you took over as president, or one thing, you know, maybe I should preface it from a lot of the emails that I got, is that they're worried that they're going to get a lot of the same of the old. You know, I've heard a lot of chess players refer to our current era in chess in New Mexico as kind of the dark ages of chess. I know Chad Schneider himself, when he started playing chess again, part of the reason why he started the Wired Kings is because chess he thought was so dismal in New Mexico. And I've kind of tried to do the same as him. And so when you took over as president, your numbers went down a lot. What makes you think, or why do you think was the cause of that?
Okay, the numbers went down a lot. In terms of what?
Tournament attendance, almost across the board on all the tournaments, you had a decrease from 20 to 30%.
Over what?
Over the year you were president over the previous year.
Right. And the year I was president followed the year that I wasn't president. If we run a lousy tournament in July, word will get around, and next July's tournament will be attended how? More poorly. So I didn't run those tournaments the year before I was president. Did it fall? Yes, it did. It fell significantly. But guess what? Since that fall, at least in the Albuquerque Open, and I've got a graph here that I produced, that particular year, my attendance at the Albuquerque Open was higher than the average of all the years that followed. Will I be a repetition of what went on before? Why would I even bother to run if I'm going to continue the old ways? Makes no sense to me. Okay?
Sounds great, Scout. All right, this will conclude our interview.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your time.
Okay.